One of the biggest banes to anyone trying to achieve financial independence or otherwise progress financially is lifestyle inflation. It's very real in that as you bring in more income, you're more prone to spend it and increase your expenses on a bigger house, a bigger car, whatever it is. You just increase your spending as your income grows. That's the inflation part. Even though you should be making more progress in your investments or whatever, you are not actually making any more progress than you were before, despite having that larger income. It's not a very good thing, assuming you're not already investing a ton of money as is before this inflation starts to creep up. It's a problem because as your expenses grow, it's very hard to dial them back again. You might get used to a certain type of lifestyle. You're going to get more comfortable with it. And if you're trying to make progress on the financial front, it's going to be harder to do that if you need to cut your expenses because, again, it's very hard to cut those expenses once you've built them up. So you got to be very wary of lifestyle inflation in general. However, I think there is a pretty productive way to use lifestyle inflation or this idea of increasing your expenses as you go along in life and start to enjoy more things with it. I think you can use that to your advantage if you're very intentional and very careful with how you are doing it. Now, take this property that I just closed on as an example. This is the one I'm filming from right now. Closed on it a couple weeks ago. It is twice the size of my previous primary residence. Now, I'm holding on to my previous primary residence as rental. I'll get back to that in a second. But the fact of the matter is, my housing costs are basically doubling if you just look at one house compared to the last one. But you can't stop looking there because I'm holding on to that last property, like I said, and I'm turning that into a rental. So my income is simultaneously increasing as I move into this next property, which can also serve as a rental in its own right. It's not as though I'm using that rental income to go and have some unsustainably higher lifestyle where I have a big house that really won't serve as a productive asset by the time I move out of it. And that's really how I can protect myself and still enjoy some lifestyle inflation and having a nicer, bigger place to stay because I have the ability to rent this out if I need to. I have extra bedrooms I could rent out if I wanted to house hack again. And once I move out of this property, it will serve as a decent rental with good numbers. It's not as though I bought something that would never serve as a rental and therefore making myself house rich but poor pretty much everywhere else. I think that's called house poor. I forget the actual term. But the idea is that, sure, you have this great big house, but you also have this great big payment and it won't bring in enough rental income to offset that payment. So it's really a losing asset, even though you're controlling a piece of real estate and that should come with a lot of benefits. If you don't buy right or you're not positioning yourself properly, you're putting yourself in a bind financially, especially if you want to have options later on. And that's really why any of us invest or try to improve our financial situations in general. It's to have the option to do whatever it is you want to do. And for some people, that's quitting their job and to do something else. For some people, it's still staying within that job, but having that idea in your head that I could leave this job if I ever wanted to, and that's very liberating. And it obviously takes away a lot of the financial stress that people face on a day-to-day basis. It's not going to get rid of all of it because that will never happen. You can always get more money and you can always lose a lot of money. So it's not as though it'll ever completely go away, but you can certainly make your situation a whole lot better. Now, alternatively, what I could have done is instead of buying this particular townhome, I could have bought a different property that was a lot bigger, a lot nicer, and really would be a huge step up in lifestyle, but also in expenses. And I wouldn't have the ability to bring in enough rental income to actually offset that payment, but I'd be enjoying it nonetheless. And sure, I could have afforded that using my W-2 job, but then I'm not making actual progress towards my financial goals. That's the bad kind of lifestyle inflation, or at least the kind of lifestyle inflation that is much harder to dig back out of or to sort of retract from. Because remember, once your expenses are up, they are pretty sticky. It's very hard to get them back down. So if you can do that in a controlled way, where even if your expenses are increasing, your ability to rent out assets, your ability to produce more income beyond just your typical day job through your investments instead, as long as that's increasing as well, that's where lifestyle inflation can get a little bit more acceptable. Of course, you got to be careful because there's always a chance that investment income dries up or is otherwise volatile. So you got to be pretty careful there too. I'm not saying to over leverage yourself just because you can bet on all this appreciation in your passive investment income. That's not a guarantee either. It's all up to your own risk reward tolerance, but just be careful there. But you can make lifestyle inflation a sort of motivating factor, and you can actually make it work for you, as I have in my own case. My lifestyle is definitely better than it was before since I have a house that's about twice the size as it was before, and I'm in largely the same area, or only a mile away from where we were living before. So we have a lot of the same sort of amenities and the things that we like about the particular area that we're living in. So that really hasn't changed. So all we've we've really had is a net improvement in our housing size and the actual quality of the house. So that is great. But beyond that, I haven't greatly expanded other expenses, which would put myself into a bind otherwise. I haven't gone out and bought some fancy car or done something where I would actually have to bring money out of pocket every single month, even if I wanted to rent that thing out because it would be cash flow negative. Those are the things you want to avoid when we're talking about lifestyle inflation. It's sort of this, I guess, good versus bad lifestyle inflation. You could say all of it is bad, but some of it I would definitely say is better than others, or at least less bad than other types. And I think this is an example. If you can buy real estate that could actually serve as a productive asset once you move out, meanwhile, you can enjoy it while you're taking advantage of that great owner-occupied financing that requires you to live in the property anyways, why not enjoy it in the meantime? But this is not to say that you should lose focus on your overarching goals. I still have the vast majority of my income going towards investments or otherwise trying to increase my net worth, whether that be through actual debt pay down or going directly towards investments or saving up for the next investment, and mainly a piece of real estate again for another deal, maybe in the Chicago area, maybe in the Indianapolis area, or some other area out of state. Point is, I'm always putting most of my money, the vast majority of it, towards something productive that will increase my net worth, even as my lifestyle begins to inflate a bit. However, it is a controlled inflation. That's really what I'm getting at here. You can use lifestyle inflation to your advantage as a motivating factor to actually make productive steps towards your financial goals. But you can also do lifestyle inflation, I would say, the wrong way, where as soon as money comes in, you are spending it towards something to improve your lifestyle, and you're always betting that your salary or whatever it is going to keep going up and up and up, which is not a guarantee. No job is permanent, so don't pretend like it is. You have to be very careful. This is why having multiple streams of income is very important. And depending on how you actually weigh your situation, your income might be a lot more solid and actually protected versus someone else who might have one source of income, mainly a W-2 job from an employer that is not necessarily that protected. You could always lose that job the next day. Or something happens to where your only source of income is suddenly gone or reduced significantly, then you're in a bind, especially if you have already gone through some significant lifestyle inflation that didn't have other options to fall back on in the event that something like that happened. In my case, if I were to suddenly lose my job or lose the vast majority of my income, I'd have some other options to produce new income through the things that I own, through the things that currently I'm enjoying via some little lifestyle inflation. But like I said, if I wanted to rent out one of the extra bedrooms, it's something we could do. It's an option that is there. So even though our actual expenses on paper are greater, our ability to produce more income is also greater. And that's before we even get into the fact that we're still holding on to our previous primary residence, and that is becoming an income producing asset as well. So, and that'll be offsetting a good chunk of our new greater housing payment anyways, at least until we move out and actually rent this property out and do the whole process over again. So consider using some form of lifestyle inflation as motivation. Of course, that's all we really want in life. We want either stuff or experiences, and most often these things cost money. I'm not saying that money is the root of everything, but it certainly makes things a lot easier, and it's probably a goal of yours, especially if you've come across this video and you follow the channel, since that's what I talk about every single week. It's finance and investing topics. In general, lifestyle inflation is a bad thing for most people, at least in most cases. However, it can be sort of twisted or angled in a good way to actually make it productive so that it's motivating towards actually getting towards your financial goals. And you can use it to make that journey towards those financial goals that much more comfortable. I'd definitely love to get your guys' thoughts on this sort of concept in the comments below. The alternative, of course, if you can stomach it, is to live on a shoestring budget forever, and that might work for you. However, you got to think about sustainability here. This is a many-year process. You're not going to get rich overnight, at least that is the most likely case. It's going to take many years of effort and consistency. And just like a diet or some sort of exercise regimen, if it's not sustainable, if you can't do it for many years at a time, it's probably not going to be very effective. And sure, you can go on a shoestring budget for many months at a time and maybe use that to test yourself to see if you can really handle it. And that can get you some sort of peace of mind knowing that you can cut down your expenses in a great way to actually give yourself some room financially if it really came down to it. But beyond that, you got to think about sustainability. Don't make yourself miserable in going for a financial goal. But on the flip side, don't live like royalty if you are not in fact royalty yet. Anyways, I'd love to get your guys' thoughts in the comments below. What's your perspective on lifestyle inflation? Do you try to avoid it at all costs? Do you let a little bit creep in, even inadvertently? What is your perspective on this? Definitely love to see it in the comments below. But otherwise, that's all I've got for today. So if you like this video, please like it, since that would help the channel out a lot. And if you like this sort of content about investing and personal finance, then definitely subscribe, since I put out new videos every single week and wouldn't want you guys to miss out. And check out the free stuff and the affiliate links in the description below. But until next time, take care.